Hello, you are tuning in to the Capsule in Conversation podcast, dedicated to women and their well-being. I'm Natalie Anderson, and today I'm joined by empowerment and sexuality coach Gabriella Espinosa to talk reclaiming pleasure, staying wild, and the impacts of hormones on good sex. So make yourself comfortable and get ready to join us in our conversation. Hello all, thank you so much for joining us today. It is lovely to have you with us as always, and it is also very lovely to be welcoming my gorgeous guest, as I've been following her for a while now, and I'm really excited to be bringing her expertise to our podcast. As a contributor to SheerLuxe, The Daily Mail and Oprah Daily, and the founder of Women's Body Wisdom, Gabriella aims to erase the myth that midlife and menopause means that we become invisible, unattractive and undesirable. Very much so. Facilitating one-to-one and group coaching programs and leading international retreats, she passionately believes that sexual pleasure has no age limit or expiration date. I am so thrilled to have her with me. She is the brilliant Gabriella Espinosa. Hi, Gabriella.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much, Natalie, for having me on. I'm so excited about this conversation.
I am as well. I'm really excited about this because from Instagram posts that we've done, from all the other chats that we've had, from our live event, pleasure and sex is such an important topic, but we kind of don't talk about it. We shy away from it. I think there's a big part of shame and secrecy, and we're just not good at it, are we?
Yes, unfortunately. I just feel there's so much about pleasure, especially female pleasure, that we have not been taught about. And I think we just lack the language, the vocabulary, but starting to have conversations like we're having today and normalizing it, I think opens the door for others to have conversations as well, to just feel more at ease. But it has been seen as taboo and something to be kept secret, right? There's like this fear, I feel. I definitely felt it when I was growing up about the harm or the damage that can be caused when women access this knowledge that brings us closer to who we really are as females, as women, right? With this powerful sexual energy. And the irony is that we've all been brought into the world with this very energy that we fear. Conditioned to believe that it's shameful or dirty. And as a result, right, we have so many unhealthy narratives that shape our bodies and our sexuality. And this causes silencing and shame. And, I say the truth is, your sexual energy, and this goes back to my studies of traditional Eastern wisdom, is sexual energy and pleasure is just that. It's energy. It's your life force. If you don't want to call it sexual energy or pleasure, just consider it's your life force. It's your chi, your vitality, your spark, whatever you want to call it. And then when we connect with our bodies and connect to this energy, it's really fundamental to making us feel more connected to ourselves, to our relationships, to our family dynamics. It gets us out of, flight, fight, or freeze, and really cultivates the resilience for moving us forward and thriving. And I know this is especially important for women in midlife.
And when you talk about it like that, I mean, straight away, I'm like, oh my God, yes, I've got life force, and I feel like empowered by it straight away. But there's an element that I think with women, we have also been punished or demonized for being sexy. So a lot of women want to kind of fight against that stereotypical using their sexuality. It's kind of, women have been made to feel like, oh, you've used your sexuality to get ahead, or you've used this. And that is so damaging, because as you've just described it, it's so much part of who we are, and essentially we're being made to either shrink ourselves, make ourselves small, make ourselves put that part of us away to fit into a box that society deems is okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And I do think this energy that we talk about is more of a feminine energy. So although both men and women have that energy, right? We all carry both these masculine and feminine energies, but we've been, as you said, conditioned to suppress that female energy, adopt more of a striving, pushing masculine energy, and that depletes us. We arrive to different stages of our lives just depleted. We're exhausted. Women that I talk to are just exhausted. Yes. Because they're not tuning into that energy that nourishes them, right? That sensuality, that pleasure. I mean, it can be simple pleasures, everyday pleasures. We're conditioned to strive and be, and yes, that has served us to get ahead to a certain degree, but pushing down this essential female energy that we have is not serving us at all.
And like you say, it's leaving us feeling exhausted and burnt out and like juggling so many plates. And then we have the thing where hormones come into play. You know, when you start to kind of your late 30s, early 40s, and you are starting to lose estrogen, and all of a sudden there's a hormonal shift. Then you have that dynamic impacting us as well. And that's, I know you've said before, like many women that come to you, your clients, they don't know who they are. They don't know kind of themselves. They don't know how to connect to their desires. You say they're in their heads quite a lot.
Yes.
Like, and how do you break that down with them? Like, how do you get them to feel more connected to their sexuality?
Yes, that's a great question. And as you said, we arrive to menopause, and as our estrogen levels feel depleted, there is this, and women don't feel like themselves anymore. There is this our lived experience, because we come to this phase of our life wiser, right, with more lived experience. Something within us, right, something within us tells us there is more to life than this. And they feel this sense of like this internal kind of like nudge, or kind of, I sometimes say it's a calling to like, there is more to life than just pushing and striving and doing, right? I want to feel more connected to myself, more connected to this energy. Sometimes they can't even describe it, right? But it is our feminine essence. I sometimes describe it as accessing the wild woman within us. And you alluded to this in the topic, in the title of this podcast. That wild woman is an archetype. It's not someone who's hanging from the chandeliers. It's someone who is our true essence, someone who's connected to nature, to the natural world around us, someone who's connected to their intuition, to this feminine energy, this feminine power, this feminine sensuality, all that informs the way that we show up in the world with confidence, with greater self-esteem, more assured of ourselves. And that, as we've been talking about, gets lost. That wild woman essence gets lost in our modern go-go world. And so what I do is just take it way, when I work with women, we take it really, really, really way back to very basics. Start by sensitizing and regulating your nervous system, because we're in this constant fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? I work with women to sensitize and regulate their nervous systems. I work with very simple practices that involve movement, breath, touch, non-sexual practices, really just very basic nervous system regulation practices. And this gives them the feeling of feeling connected to themselves and feeling more, what I say, at home and safe in their bodies. And so once you've established that groundwork, once you're able to learn to regulate your nervous system, recognize when you're, when you're moving into a stress response, or you're moving into an anxiety or panic attack, right? You recognize the signs and symptoms of those deregulated states, and then you come back into a more regulated state. And from there, we incorporate what I call more pleasure practices, which are more sexually oriented, getting to know yourself, your erogenous zones, as well as your non-erogenous zones, through touch, through movement, through breath. So it's really, it's really about you. I said, I dial it back to business. It's basics. It's all about getting to know yourself at a very intimate level, because you cannot connect with another until you get to know yourself first. So it's really about establishing that intimate connection with yourself, with your nervous system, with your feelings, with your emotions, with your desires, with what lights you up, with what feels good to you.
And that gets so lost though, doesn't it? Like when we become the bottom of the list, you know, when you suddenly like, you know, you've maybe potentially had children, or you've had your career, and you know, you put yourself at the bottom of the list. Women do it all the time, and it's everybody else's needs, and it's everybody else's priorities, and it's, you know, whether it's elderly parents that you might be looking after, or children, or work demands. You get completely lost in that. And so I suppose in a way what you're kind of saying is it's unpacking that and unraveling that to get to the basics again, to go back to you. I suppose in a way, like when we were teenagers and we kind of, you know, experimented, and, you know, and we'd also have chatter with our friends. We'd talk about it and we'd say, oh, is this happening to you? And, you know, what about this? Did you do this with this person? Or da 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 da. And we'd have all that chit chat, and we don't do that at all anymore. So it's almost going back to that youthful phase, isn't it?
You know, there was a very interesting study done by a woman at Stanford University, where she gathered women in groups of, you know, small groups of women, 5 to 10 women, over a period of 4 weeks. And every week they would gather together and speak about pleasure, their desires, sex, right? It was facilitated by someone like me, because this is what I do now in my group coaching. And she found that after gathering for just 4 weeks and being able to have a safe, intimate space to talk about those things, actually allowed their markers for sexual pleasure to increase. And there wasn't any sexual practices happening. It was just talking, being able to talk intimately and openly about these things that really impact us at a very, very deep level. And so, yes, gathering together with other women, even if it's just one-on-one, like you and I are doing, you'll have to report to me a week after this conversation.
Well,
but it does. I mean, I notice it too when when I spend time talking about it with a lot of the women that I'm with. Wow, I feel more lit up, more alive. I have language for then, which I can then use to go speak to my partner about. I feel more, again, lit up and more in touch with what really matters to me. And that really, like I said, it all starts with you, really getting to know yourself, understand what lights you up, and empowering yourself with the know-how, the language, so that you can communicate that to another if you're in partnership, or really just show up differently in the world. It really just puts a little spring in your step and a smile on your face, I feel, when you are able to talk about pleasure openly.
Absolutely. And you know, as you quite rightly pointed out, you know, connection and talking is so vital. And a lot of women at this point in life stop talking with their partners, and it almost becomes like the intimacy becomes like a chore, and it becomes something that people then start to shy away from, because it feels, you know, it could even be down to whether it's, you might be suffering from certain symptoms of perimenopause or menopause. You know, if we look at, during our live event just recently, one of the women brought up vaginal dryness, and she said, I find this debilitating in my sex life because it makes me not want to participate. So I'll put it off. I won't talk about it. But then it's causing quite a big void between her and her partner. And because the other person doesn't know what they've kind of done, why there's a lack of intimacy. And this point of talking is so important, isn't it? And even if it's just talking, even if it's just having kind of, you know, a conversation that stimulates your desire, even, like you were saying before, it doesn't actually have to be the practice of having sex. It could be language, it could be talking that connects you.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, this low sexual desire, as we know, is one of the most common sexual health concerns for women, especially in midlife, right? But yet it's such a neglected issue, right? So many, I think there's a statistic out there, 68 to 85% of midlife women report a change to their desire or to their libidos. And, the truth is sexual health is fundamental to our overall health and well-being. So it's important to address this with your partner, with your doctors. And, the good news is when you do this, when you prioritize your sexual health and pleasure through menopause and beyond with the right care and attention and prioritizing it, it can improve. But I know that many women say to me, I just can't be bothered. I'm just not in the mood. And they blame it on their hormones, our menopause. But we have to also understand that and normalize, right, that libido or desire is multifactorial, right? And it takes into account various states of our physical, our psycho-emotional, our biochemical, and mental well-being. So yeah, there's our biology, there's hormones, there's, as you mentioned, vaginal dryness, genitourinary syndrome, a menopause, of which it's a constellation of symptoms that create dryness, pain, discomfort, which make women turn away from intimacy. But there are things that you can do to address that, right? There's, our physical health and our fitness. Sometimes medications can lower our desire. And then there's also our psychology, right? Maybe we have limited beliefs around pleasure or body image, right? Our bodies are starting to change. I hear from a lot, of women that, as their bodies change in the menopause transition, they don't feel good about their tummies or their breasts that have either shrunk or gotten bigger, and there's, and so they turn away from pleasure, right? They don't want their partners to see them, right? Little do they know their partners probably don't even notice. If I work with a lot of women who are in long-term relationships. If you're in a long-term loving relationship, your partner is not going to notice that. Your partner's really, by this time, we know, right? We see our partners for who they truly are. That's why we've been with them for this amount of time. And I think really dealing with the psychological issues around body image and limiting beliefs. I mean, there's also trauma and that unresolved trauma that sometimes come up. There's our social cultural conditioning, right? That, I see women where some of their earlier religious beliefs start to come to the surface, right? And then there's also relationships. Our relationships do shift in midlife, right? Our partners may not be available. They may be going through their own issues as well, health-wise. Maybe there's been a lack of communication or emotional intimacy because you've been so busy doing and taking care of kids if you've had a family and being a career person, if that's what you've done. And it's really a matter of, I feel menopause really offers us the time to pause and evaluate our unique states, all of these unique states, and consider how do we want to be and feel in the second half of life and address them, really prioritize them. It really takes an effort to prioritize them. But once you sort of sort things out and you get to know yourself better and understand what lights you up and see what are the obstacles to enjoying deeper, more satisfying pleasure, then you're on, you have a clear runway for greater, more satisfying pleasure ahead.
I think as well, like what you said, the key word for me there is prioritize. Mm-hmm. And I think with a lot of couples, it's potential, like you say, people are busy, lives are busy, and it's such a fast world right now. Everybody's constant, whether it's the phone is the worst thing for disconnect. For everybody's in their phone, whether it's news, whether it's whatever it is, emails, it's put that away as a couple, and actually prioritize your time together. And if that is starting with just conversation, and there's potential to have a lot of fun here, isn't there? To go back almost to those early dating stages where you are rediscovering each other and kind of working out what you like. And if you've already worked out for yourself, if you've spent time on yourself, then you can relay that to your partner. but you have to give yourself that time. And it's really good, I think, like, you know, now we're seeing the likes of like Gwyneth Paltrow and Gillian Anderson, you know, both got like G-Spot and Goop, and, you know, they've now got like sex kind of, they've got vibrators and all different kind of paraphernalia on like out there for women to feel more comfortable with, for women to feel like, okay, I can go and buy that, and that's part of my my sexual well-being, my overall well-being, and factoring in that, again, what we were saying earlier, being intimate, either whether that's with yourself or with your partner, it is a massive part of your overall well-being. It's not like a dirty secret. You have to kind of think, as human beings, this is what we do, you know, we're built this way.
Yeah, and you know, the science has told us, is showing us. Even there's been a recent study on the use of vibrators, especially in midlife for women in the menopause transition, how it reduces stress levels, improves your sleep, it improves your mood, it facilitates blood flow to the vulvovaginal area, and that helps improve lubrication, as well as keeping everything kind of plump and you know, functional, and it improves the integrity of the whole vulvovaginal tissues, and it just, you know, it's just good for you and it's fun. Right. And so I work with a lot of women to establish a self-pleasure practice. It's a wonderful way to expand this understanding of yourself as a sensual and sexual being. And it's a self-pleasure practice. So like I say, I start with the basics. So it's self-pleasure is different from masturbation. So masturbation is goal oriented. So it's like, I want to get an orgasm, I want to release tension, and there's no shame. I totally am here for the orgasms, and there's always a time and a place for this. But beginning very slowly, because a lot of women, I know I'm speaking for myself, my generation, we didn't, you know, we carried that shame around touching ourselves. You know, girls aren't supposed to do that. Nice girls don't do that. And so even just starting to be able to touch ourselves, to reorient ourselves to our pleasure, and through our sexual organs or through our erogenous zones is new, right? We gave that pleasure, we handed that over to someone else. We thought the movies, Hollywood, the movies, porn, romance novels tells us that that's to be given away to someone else, right? And so we don't have the know-how, the knowledge, or the comfort to say, yeah, it belongs to me and I can offer it to myself. That's why I love what Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop and all these sexual wellness brands are doing. And so self-pleasure is a way to help you connect to your sensations and your emotions. And it starts with, we start with just simple touch practices, you know, exploring your erogenous zones. I say your whole body is a pleasure zone. So exploring non-erogenous zones, through like the neck or the inner arms or the armpits, the ears, you know, behind the ears, your belly, your abdomen, you know, just start exploring different areas of your body and see with touch, with your fingertips or with the use of a vibrator, right? Exploring those non-erogenous zone areas so you know what lights you up, what feels good. And then you can head to your more erogenous zones, right? Your genitals, and explore those areas, you know, your lip, your mouth, and then just give yourself permission to explore your body for yourself and discover where you experience that heightened sensitivity. And then you can enjoy that for yourself. And if you're in partnership, you can then guide your partner to what feels good for you. So it's this kind of re-education I guide women through of getting to know themselves in this very intimate way.
But I think, as you were saying, I do feel like younger women are getting there quicker because we're having more open conversations. So if you talk to like women in their 20s and 30s, they kind of think not too much, to be honest, of this kind of talk. It's really women that are currently like 40 plus and upwards, that they're the ones that, like you said, have come from a generation which has been kind of giving that power away to somebody else, and that's what they've been fed, and that's the ideal, and it's romantic and it's passionate. That's apparently passion, and actually you've got your own passion. And what I found really interesting, what you were saying earlier, and it just made me think of something. It's like even lingerie, buying your own underwear and feeling really good in it and buying it for you, or like dancing. Again, just going back to that personal kind of what lights you up, what stimulates you, and dedicating time to you as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it doesn't take very much, right? So it just is a matter of inviting simple pleasures, like you said, dancing or lingerie or whatever it is. It can even be, going outside and just feeling the sun on your face, or enjoying a beautiful cup of tea, taking time out to really savor that moment and just noticing, what does it feel like to enjoy that pleasurable moment? What are the sensations in your body? So the more we practice those simple pleasures, the more we expand our capacity, our body's capacity, our emotional capacity to experience greater pleasure in other forms. But it really takes, because it's really hard to go from like stressed out, busy day to then being intimate with a partner. You're going from, you're starting at zero. You're starting at zero, no fuel in the tank. So how do you build that fuel in the tank? Through cultivating these simple pleasures. I say these help build pleasure pathways in your system, but it does take practice, and it does take making it a priority. A lot of women, sometimes it's just resting, taking a 20-minute nap during the day, right? When they're feeling exhausted. How pleasurable is that? But we deny ourselves that. So often, all these simple pleasures, we don't prioritize them. We think it's selfish or indulgent, but it really is what makes you human and what makes you thrive. So making space to invite pleasure into your day expands your capacity to feel more of it. And this has a beautiful rippling effect into other areas of your life.
And, going back to what you were saying about being like finding that wild woman, I know you talked about it kind of on your Instagram, and I found it really interesting, some of the comments that came from this, when you'd said, it can be a difficult experience as well, because, or an emotional experience, because you potentially are cutting off some toxicities in your life, or people that demand so much of you. And, a few people commented and said, actually they want to go on that journey, but they're struggling for their partner to understand that, and their marriage, because they want to dedicate time to themselves. But because it's a self kind of act, an act of like looking in at you, and you're not giving as much time to other things, it can disrupt the dynamic. And you've said yourself that you found that in a bit in your journey. I mean, just tell me about your experience.
Yeah, well, I thought it was very interesting. Also, the comments from that post on tuning into our inner wild woman. So for me, I think, and I said it earlier, I think menopause is menopause is an incredible opportunity to tune inwards, really to do, I have a program that I call the inner work of menopause, because it really is, you will feel it, right? As our hormones decline, especially progesterone, our feel-good, happy hormones, things come up to the surface, things that we have suppressed for so long, whether they're old wounds or limited beliefs or trauma, that all comes up to the surface to be dealt with, right? And it takes this journey of tuning inwards, this inner work, if you want to call it, of peeling back those layers, of trying to understand it. And it's very vulnerable. A lot of women feel a lot of resistance. They don't want to go there. They just want to put a patch on it, and hopefully everything will be better. But I'm so sorry, the hormone patch will work temporarily, but those things will continue to surface. And they're there to really hold a mirror up to what needs to be dealt with in your life. So yes, so tuning into that work, the whatever limiting beliefs, woundings, trauma, suppressed feelings, suppressed desires. Menopause is an excellent opportunity to look at that. So with the help of a coach, a therapist, or through a lot of these somatic practices that I teach, right? So neuroscience tells us that the better we're able to tune into our bodies, the better we feel better about our bodies and in our bodies. But when we go in, it will be uncomfortable. It will not look pretty. It may be a little bit messy. A lot of emotions may rise to the surface, but these practices that I teach, these somatic practices, aim to help you really look at those emotions and those feelings and those sensations and really help you move them and move through them and allow you to shift them so that you can come to a place of feeling whole and at home in your own skin again. So it is a very vulnerable and tender process, right? For anyone, right? To go through that, to do that inner work of looking at your emotional landscape, the things that you have suppressed, but we cannot do it anymore. That's what menopause tells us. You can't do this anymore. You have to do this inner work.
It's so interesting that you say that, because our guest last week, Lisa, talked very much about, she'd written this brilliant book about her perimenopause journey and menopause journey. And she said she found that she was almost purging these experiences, and she's now in a place where she feels so kind of enlightened, uplifted, wiser, and I talked at length with her actually about it, and in the book when I read it, I said I definitely found this element of looking backwards. You have to kind of address these things to move into this next phase, and it's almost like a bit of a phoenix. I think that's how I've envisaged it, was like a phoenix kind of getting rid of all that and then coming out like this golden, wiser, like more streamlined, kind of knowing exactly what you want, getting rid of the toxicities in your life. And I wonder, do you think come because you get to a point where you think, actually, you're probably at the halfway point of life now. So what are you willing to take forward to the next bit? Do you think that mirror situation comes because of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it is this lived experience, this wisdom that we all have as women that calls to us, right? It's just, you feel it. So many women say, I just feel something, this voice inside of me, or this little nudge to really look at myself more deeply and really figure out what it is that I want to do, right? We have a whole second half of life ahead of us, right? And so it is this sort of existential kind of calling of like, what do you want to do with the second half of your life? How do you want to be? How do you want to feel? Do you want to, what is your purpose? Right. And so I think it's a very human response, but especially for us as women, we come to that realization of, wow, there's something within me. My feminine power is, and my feminine pleasure and wisdom is a force to be reckoned with. And it's something that I need to look at and embody so that I can use that in the second half of life and move through life with all of that wisdom, all of that pleasure and power.
And do you think some of that also comes because menopause is the end of the reproductive phase? So as women, we've primarily been like fed and conditioned like it's about babies and children and family and this and that. And that's what the first half is all about as a woman, technically, like that when you look out into society. And then once that stops, it's like, well, okay, as you said, what is the purpose now? Like, who am I now? Do you think that's part of it?
Definitely. For me, I remember just waking up one morning and looking at myself in the mirror and like, who am I? Right? Who am I as a sexual being? Who am I as a sensual being? What is my purpose? And it's not pretty to look at yourself in the mirror and not have answers. right? But you want to seek those answers, right? That's part of the journey of being human, that desire for personal development and enlightenment. I think we all seek that. We all are seekers of our own, of our own purpose and pleasure. And so we know that's something to be looked at. And so I definitely feel that menopause, evolutionarily, when we're done with our reproductive cycles, we have a greater purpose to serve. We have our lived experience. We are, our wisdom is of so much value to our communities, to our relationships, to the world around us. And how do we want to embody that? How do we want to step into that power? And I feel being connected to our pleasure and our sexual power is one way to do that.
And would you say that's a big part of kind of why you founded like My Menopause Story, which is the platform for bringing women together? Yeah, I know that that's something that's really important to you. Just talk me through that journey.
Yeah, so I just have this, part of me. I grew up in a family where there were a lot of secrets. Right. There was a lot of silence and shame and taboo around my reproductive cycles. I mean, my menstruation was rarely talked about, forget about, sex and menopause. So none of that was talked about. And I'm just a very curious person. And I feel we have to unearth those stories, just bust open that shame and taboo and silencing over something that is so primal to who we are as women. So sharing stories is one way to do that, as we are doing right now. And so I founded My Menopause Story with the belief that everyone's journey into menopause is unique, and that each and every one of our stories matters. And so I have women contribute their personal stories of what were some of the inherited narratives they had about menopause? Was it even spoken about in their family? What was their personal experience of moving into menopause? And if they are on the other side, what have they learned and how are they feeling? And most of them, right, report and write that they feel more empowered, more alive, more, full of purpose. And so many of them have transitioned into other jobs, right? They're now doing things that really light them up, that bring them a lot of pleasure. And I love that this menopause transition has that opportunity for us as women.
And I think it's so important because, the work that we're doing here, and there's lots of other kind of people doing various things across the world, actually, for women in this area. But it just means that, we're going to retain women in jobs, in careers, which is, going to contribute more to society and have a better society because we're keeping hold of brilliant, clever, intelligent women who feel like they do have a purpose that, yes, with some support, people say, perimenopause and menopause, it can be a challenging time. For some women, some women go through it absolutely fine. But for those that, may struggle, may have fluctuating symptoms, to know that there is a life and there's positivity on the other side, I think is so important.
Yeah, I think midlife is a reawakening of ourselves and our sexuality. We don't have to worry about contraception. We're not being defined by our reproductive capabilities. And there's really this sense of liberation and freedom. It's really a new chapter in our lives, our sexual lives. And sexual pleasure can be used as a tool for that awakening. But as I said, it really all starts with you. The most important relationship you have is the one that you have with yourself. And it's what a wonderful place to arrive, right, in midlife or at the end of life, to know that you've been through this journey of really getting to know yourself. And I think I call it a heroine's journey, right? It is a heroine's journey of, diving deep and unearthing some unpleasant truths or some things that need to be healed. But really, we come out the other side so much better for it.
Do you know what I love so much about this conversation is how connected to nature and earthy and our human instincts it is, as opposed to, I suppose, what people might think it could be about. They might think it's, yes, we've touched on vibrators and masturbation, we've touched on that, but really it's essentially about, as we've said earlier, the wild woman and getting to know her and putting her back into the world. I love that. And honestly, it's been such a brilliant conversation. I'm just looking at the time going, oh my God, where's that time gone? Gabriella, it has been wonderful to have you with me. Honestly, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I've loved talking to you. And don't forget to report how you are doing it by the end of the week from talking about.
I will. Yeah, honestly, I genuinely, and I hope our listeners all feel the same. I literally feel like I want to just now go run free into like the hills somewhere and just find my inner Kathy, like in Kathy and Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights. I feel a bit like emblazoned.
Your eyes are lit up and you're sparkling. Yeah, it's wonderful because that's it. That's the energy that we all are. That is our birthright, right? That is the energy that it's our birthright. And it's just a matter of connecting with yourself, having conversations like this so that you can bring it up to the surface and just live from that place.
And also what I feel like you've done in this conversation is making it less frightening for people. Is that it can feel very intimidating. It can feel very scary to talk about intimacy. It can feel very much like, as you were saying, if people are tired and they're fraught and it's the last thing that they want to do. But actually the slow, steady steps of getting to know you first could be actually what takes you on that path to better intimacy with a partner and knowing kind of what you want. I have just absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for being with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. I love this conversation.
And to learn more about Gabriella and the work that she does, you can follow her on Instagram at Gabriella Espinosa or head to www.gabriellaespinosa.com for more on women's body wisdom. As always, for more wellbeing, fashion and beauty, you can follow us at our website www.thecapsule.co.uk, where you can also catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the In Conversation page or subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. As always, feel free to leave your rates and reviews. I have absolutely loved reading all of your messages this series. Thank you so much for being so interactive. It's been so lovely to hear that we've been a bit helpful. So thank you so much for that and keep them coming. As always, I will be back next week with another very special guest, but all that's left for us to say today is goodbye. So it's goodbye from Gabriella.
Bye. Thank you so much.
And goodbye from me. Bye.